Hello guys, so in this video we are going to see how to create a turret. So we are going to create something like this. So this is our turret and this will be our range. So if we click on our turret, you can see our range, and when our enemy enters the range, our turret starts shooting. So this is what we are going to create. So let's get started. So create a new 3D project in Unity, and you can see here I have imported free assets. You can get those assets from asset store. It's free and you can just download it. It has many different types of turret. So we are going to see only one turret in this video, and that will be turret 1. So the first thing you have to do is just drag the turret into the scene, and let's double click on it so we can zoom it, and let's save the scene and let's name it turret. Okay, the next thing we want is let's create a ground here. So create 3D object and let's create a chord and let's rotate it, reset its position, and let's rotate it on x axis by 90, and let's scale it to 100, 100, and let's change its color. So just right click, create and create a material, and let's name it ground, and let's give it some greenish color. We don't want smoothing, a dark gray, something like this. Okay, now that's fine. Okay, the next thing is what we have to do is let's see the turret. So the turret is direction is all along z axis, so it's what we want. So let's rename it to turret, and so it has an animator with it which we are going to use it. So now let's open this, and this is the body, and what we have to do is we have to just rotate our head like this on y-axis. So what you have to do is let's right click and create a new game object, empty game object, and name it aim. We will be using this game object to provide rotation to our head along which depending on which direction the enemy is. The next thing is let's create a script. So just right click, create a C# script, and let's name it turret controller, and just drag this script on our turret, and let's double click and open it. So mine is opening in Visual Studio. You may be in Mono Develop depending on which coding software you are using. So what we need is we need first a public transform, and this will keep track of our target. So whenever our target is in the range, it will save it in this variable. Next is our aim. The aim will be used to give the rotation, and third will be our head, which we are going to rotate. Okay, let's assign those, and we are going to assign aim and then head, and target will not be assigned because it will be this target will be assigned when the game is running. And also let's add a component physics and rigid body, and we don't want gravity. And the next component we want is a sphere collider, and let's see, okay, we want it to be is trigger, so that whenever the enemy enters the collider, our turret gets notified. So let's increase its radius. So let's make it 2, and let's center it to 0, 0, 0, or let's make it 3. Okay, this will be our range. The next is we are going to create some float public variables. So float reload time. Now this is the time between 2 shots, like between 2 bullets when fired. Then turn speed. This is the speed with which our turret will rotate. Then our fire pause time, and this will be the time between each turn, so that our turret will not be rotating every frame. It will have some pause and then it will rotate. And these variables which I have added the values to them, they are just random and you can just try it your own. And we have a range, and our range will be as same as the radius of our sphere. The next thing we want is our muzzle positions. Now what we want to do is we want our bullets to be shot from our cannons, and we have 2 cannons here. So what we will do is we go in turret head, let's go in head, right click and create empty. So let's let it be right. So this will be right muzzle, and let's position it. Now this is the point at which our raycast will be spawning. So in this mechanism, I'm not going to use bullet 3D object because it just create more game objects, and that's not optimized also. So I will be using raycast here, and let's right click, duplicate, and just make it a child of cannon 2. Let's x0, and let's name it left muzzle. Okay, so now we have muzzles which we are going to use, and let's create a point light, so that whenever our turret fires, we will flash a point light here. So let's see the range. I think range is pretty big, you can see here. Let's reduce it. Okay, the one looks fine for me. Let's turn off these gizmos, they are blocking the view, and let's change the color to some orange. Okay, let's change our ground color. Let's make it brown. Okay, now we can try our, let's bump up the intensity. Let's make it 3, and let's try now. Okay, now it's flashing. Let's change the camera angle also. What we will do? Okay, let's select the camera now. Go to game object and align with view. So now you can see here, and now let's try it. Yeah, now it's looking nice. Okay, now the next thing, we want a reference to our muzzles. So public transform, and we will be creating an array, because we can have more than 1 cannons, like in our example here. So muzzle pose. Okay, The next is we want a bool which decide whether the game object, whether our turret can see the enemy or not. So let's say if there is a wall between our enemy and turret and we don't want our turret to fire, okay, so let's create a bool can see, and at the start it will be false, and next we want to create a game object muzzle flash, and it will be our it will be the reference to our point light which will flash as we fire. And we want a public audio clip fire sound, okay, and then we want some private variables. So let's assign this muzzle flash first. Let's assign point, and we want muzzle flash here. This is what we want, okay, and muzzle positions. So we have 2 muzzle positions, and remember to make the muzzle positions this child of your cannons, because as our cannon rotates we want this to be rotated with them. Okay, so next is, okay, now we want some private variables. So private float next fire time, and this will keep track of our fire rate, so that whenever we fire we increase this value by our reload time, and then we will see our time is more than this, and depending on that we will fire. Even as we go ahead we will get more clear view of this. And the next variable we want is next move time. This is also for moving our turret. Now we want public int random muzzle. As we have 2 muzzles, we want to shoot with random muzzles, any one of them at a single time. And we want a reference to our animator, because our turret have an animation, so we want a reference to our animator animt, and then we want a reference to our audio source, because we are going to play some audio clips here. Audio, okay. Now let's get reference to this game components which are attached to the game object. First we want our muzzle flash to be deactive, so muzzle flash dot set active false. In case if we left it active at the start, we want it deactive. Then we want to get a reference to our animator, get component animator, and then we want to get reference to our audio source, get component audio source. Okay, now we want 2 methods. One will be tracking, so it will be keeping track of our enemy, and another will be aiming and firing, which will make our turret rotate and fire. So let's create first aim fire. This will be responsible for rotating our turret and firing. So we'll first check if we have a target. So when the game object or the enemy enters our range, then only our turret will rotate, else it will be static. So first we will check if we have target, then we will check if we can move or not. So if time is greater than or equal to next move time, so we will check if we can move or not, and then if we can move, then we will set our aim to look at the target. So what this does is this look at target will change the angle of this aim game object with respect to the target in such a way that the positive z axis will be directed to this target position. So you can see here this let's give it some. Okay, now this is our aim, and if we select our transform tool here, and we will see here this aim has z value here, z axis, and this is the positive one. So when we call this method look at, this will be directed towards the enemy. Let's create enemy sphere. So whatever the angle of this sphere, this will be directed to this sphere. We will see how it works. Now we want to set our Euler angles of our aim, because we just want the y value and we don't want z and x value. So aim dot Euler angles is equal to new vector 3. We want x to be 0. We want y to be aim dot Euler angle dot y as it is, and we want z to be 0. Now we want to rotate our head. So head dot rotation is equal to quaternion dot lerp. So we will lerp from the existing rotation of our head to our target. So head dot rotation comma aim dot rotation, and it will be done with respect to our move speed, so our turn speed. Okay, now we will calling our fire function here. So if time dot time is greater than or equal to next fire time and can see is true, then we will call a method called fire. We need to create it first. So let's create fire. So let's create the method void fire. Now we will select our random muzzle. So random muzzle is equal to random dot range, and it will be from 0 to our total number of muzzle positions dot length. Now after we fire, we will reset our next fire time and next move time. So next fire time is equal to time dot time plus our reload time, and next move time is equal to time dot time plus our fire pause time. Okay, then we will play our audio of firing dot play one shot, our fire sound. Then we will activate our muzzle flash, and then we will perform our animation dot set volume, and we need to create this thing. So is firing, let us say, is equal to true. So now let's set our animator. So let's select the turret, and we already have an animator here. We need a controller, so create, we need animator controller, and let's name it turret anim. So select turret anim and just drag this to the field here, select animator, and you can see in our pack, if we go in our turret 1, we have an animation called take 1. So you can just see how it is working like this here. So what we will do is we will just drag it here, and let's right click, create an empty, and let's name it empty. And we want our empty, okay, so this is fire, sorry for that, this is the empty one. Okay, we want empty to be our default state, so set as default layer here, and just right click, make transition to fire and back, and we will create a parameter boolean is firing. And remember, this is same as this, we don't want different name, we want same what we have written here. So when we are firing, we don't want has exist time here, we don't want this, and we don't want this with 0, and list is empty. Let's click on this, create, and whenever the firing is true, we play fire sound, fire animation, and when firing is not true, we will go back to our empty. And here we want exit time because we want to play our fire animation completely. So is firing false. So if I played it, so you can see empty animation is playing, and if I click on is firing, see is firing animation is playing. Okay, so we have fire method. Now we will also check if target is equal to null, that means there is no target, then muzzle flash will be deactive, it will be false. And here if our time is greater than next fire time, then we will fire, and if it is not, or else, what we will do is we will set our animation. So first we will deactivate our muzzle flash, and we will set our animation to be is firing to be false. Okay, now next is we want to keep track of our trigger here, is trigger. So let's call void on trigger stay, and we will pass our collider call, and here if we check if call dot compare tag is enemy, then so the object which we are colliding with, we will check if it is enemy, if the object's tag is enemy or not. And if it is enemy, so what we will do is we will set our next fire time is equal to time dot time plus reload time into 0.5f, and we will set our target variable here, target is equal to core.gameObject.transform. okay, now whenever if the target exit, then we want to call something void on trigger exit collider call, and if call dot gameObject dot transform is equal to target. So here we are checking that the collider which is exiting our trigger is same as our target, then our target will be equal to null. Okay, now we have our aim and fire, and we now want our tracking. So let's copy this method to our update. Now let's create a tracking method, void tracking. So we will get a forward vector of our muzzle position, random muzzle dot transform. We want transform direction vector 3 dot forward. So what this line of code does is it gets the muzzle position, the random muzzle position. So you can see here we have two muzzles, left and right. So it get one of them and transform direction, and it gets the forward direction, that means the z direction, positive z direction, and that is stored in this forward vector. Next is we create a raycast hit, and we will name is hit. Now let's create a debug dot draw ray, so that we can see in our editor whether the raycast is happening or not. And we want our random muzzle dot position. So this is the starting point. It will go in a forward direction till the range, and the color will be, let's what the color be, green. Whatever color you want, you can have it. Now we will check if physics dot raycast. So what here we are checking is, let's me complete this if statement dot position forward direction, out, hit and range. So what we are doing here is we are checking if our muzzle flash, our raycast hits any physics game object which has a rigid body on it, and the direction of our raycast will be in forward vector direction, and this hit out is the object which we are hitting, and this is the range till which our raycast will be going. And we will check if hit dot collider dot compare tag is enemy. So if our tag is enemy, then we can set can see equal to true, else can see is equal to false. Okay, and let's call this method in update. Now guys, this thing which we are using here is for optimization purpose. We don't want to call everything each frame, so we will be calling this with a fixed rate only. So I think we have completed. Let's try it. Let's go to our editor and let's minimize this. We don't want this. Now we have attached our muzzle flash, okay, our muzzles, our fires. We don't have sound, we have rigid body, we have collider, and we also want audio source. Okay, we don't want play on awake, and let's set the volume to 0.2. Let me just drag the sound. The sound effect will be available for you in the description link. You can download it from there. And let's add this sound effect to the field here. Random muzzle, okay, we have what we want. And let's create our enemy. So let's rename it to enemy, and let's change this tag to enemy. So, and if we want it to have a rigid body and we don't want gravity on it, and we want is kinematic. So this is just for the purpose of explanation, and let's move it out. Let's try it now. Okay, let's open the console to check if there are any errors. So let's play. Okay, now you can see our enemy is out of our range here. Now let me just drag it here, and you can see, okay, so our raycast is not in a position. It is okay. Let me just check it. Okay guys, the issue which was we having is we want our vector 3 and not vector 2. So let's try it again. So vector 2 is just x and y. We want x, y and z all. Now you can see our raycast is in proper direction. Let's get our enemy inside of the range, and you can see it's firing. Okay, and it's not activating. Okay, so let's go to turret, and we want this to be looping. So let's go to turret here, animation, we want it to be loop. Let's create apply, and let's try now. Okay, now it's working. Okay, and let's see why our point light is not working. So we have our point light. Okay, sorry, we had not enabled the component, so that's why it was happening. Now let's try it again. Okay, let's go to enemy, and now you can see we have the flashes we want it, and let's, where it is, increase the rate. We want it 0.1. Okay, so our animation is not that good. Okay, let me just reduce the volume. It's okay. Now let me just try it. 0.5. Yeah, 0.5 works perfectly fine here. So guys, in this way you can create a turret here, and you don't need any bullet prefab to be instantiated. You can use the raycast, and with the help of raycast, so you can see here when we are colliding, you can see we call it can see. So whenever we are firing, you can add some damage to the collider, the game object which we have collided, and we can also create some particle effect at the end of the raycast. And so guys, this is the way you can just create a simple turret for your game. So, and in the next lectures we will be covering these different types of turret, and we will see how to use them. So thank you guys, and see you in the next video.